Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Going into part two of today's episode of Roll20 Presents The Burning Wheel, Sexy Arm Touching Edition.
I hate you and I hate everything.
So, meanwhile, while Sexy Arm
It's
Touching is
it's
going on,
just side note to the sexy arm touching,
yeah,
Adam.
yeah.
In the LARP game that I play, if you're doing the sexy arm touching, that reads as more than the
Uh
sexy
huh.
arm
Yeah.
touching
There's a
while I'm
whole.
saying.
There's a whole LARP discipline called Ars Amandi that is about simulating intimate behavior using the touching of the arms. It's a whole thing. Inheritance
Well,
uses it too. Like if hugs are the lower arm and then violence is the upper arm, it's a whole thing. It's really interesting. Yes.
Well, I'm gonna be doing some upper arm bullshit.
Meanwhile, uh, Ludovic, how integrated into the security of your home are you allowing Ekaterina's people under the command of Truth? There's like about a half dozen men and women that Ekaterina has sent to protect her boyfriend, essentially. Are they like living in your house? Are you letting them stay in the guest room? Or are you like, no, just skulk around outside, stay hidden? How different is the estate?
Um,
Guards posted at the door?
I mean, he's paid them to do their jobs. If they decide that their job is best served by being inside the house, then like
Yes.
whatever.
Okay. So things have shifted for you, Lodovic. We're moving away from the idealistic knight that was your sworn boon companion, but who is now, for the time being, somewhat bedridden. Um, we're moving away from that to a more modern idea of bodyguarding, where it's like a half dozen people, one of whom is always shadowing you. The rest are like a block away or in another room scoping things out. You're like held back at rooms while someone else searches them. People that want to meet with you get patted down. They are taking very good care of you, and it's also like intimidating anyone around you, right? Like you're starting, and these are criminals, right? These are people who are used to violence, right? Whereas Oberyn would have been like, "Have at thee, knave!" They're just gonna stab someone in the kidneys and leave them in the gutter, and they're like, "All right, sir, let's go," and like, move you to a secure location.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
These are not kindly individuals, which I don't know. That may make you feel nervous. That may make you feel like more important. Oberyn, thankfully, has not been exposed to much of it, or he would be very jealous. Um, but for
Probably.
right now, I think we find you, as we often do, in your office, and you can hear outside your security basically giving someone the once over, right? Like making sure they're safe. Um, and then there's a knock on the door, which you are not allowed to answer anymore. Your nearest bodyguard opens the door. The two of them have a conversation, and then he gestures for your guest to come in. Um, and it's a messenger, a member of the city's very like highly dwindling courier sort of service. There are like paid couriers. Nobles would own someone they would send. They'd send a footman, but this is just like a paid courier. And he approaches. He's a young man, maybe a year or two younger than Oberyn, of likely low birth based on the way he's dressed. He's underdressed for the cold, but also they probably took his cloak outside. Um, and he says, "You're Mr. Lodowick Axter."
Yes, that is me.
"A letter for you, sir." And he puts it down on the table. It's a plain looking, like a rolled up, like a scroll, essentially with a wax, just a plain, no signet, gray wax seal.
Thank you. And if he's paid, does that mean I don't need to pay him, or is it sort of a delivery
No,
slip?
he would have been paid already. Yeah. He's not even really paying attention to you. He's looking around at the room and probably trying to guess why you're so important.
Um, Is there anything else? I'm going to read the letter now in private.
It's you say that, and your bodyguard he steps in and he says to the messengers like, "Get the fuck out," and the messenger's just like goes like eyes wide. He's like, "You fucking heard me, out!" And the messenger looks at you like, "I'm sorry, please, like I didn't mean to." And he goes for the door. And the one bodyguard opens it. The one on the other side is there to escort him out. Bodyguard guy closes the door and he looks at you and he shakes his head and he's like, "Sorry, sir."
Right. I suppose I'd better read this.
And the guy goes back to doing that thing. These guys all have great inconspicuous, like very high inconspicuous. And so he just goes back to like barely being there.
All right, I'm going to use my self-defense letter opener to open the letter.
I'm just imagining the alternate Burning Wheel campaign where we're these guys.
Mm-hmm. This game is spawning other games. They're a group of bravos, I think, is the thing, in the service of a very rich foreign merchant. Yeah. So you open the letter, and in it, in a slightly unusual hand, it's written in the like trade language, not in Carpathian. It's written in trade language, but with there's something unusual about the way that it's written. The characters are formed in a funny way. It says, as you're unrolling it, I think you start to look at the words when you realize that the scroll is weighted funny, and then something like there's a metallic like clank on the table. And when you look at it, you see there's an object that has fallen out of the scroll once you've unrolled it. It's a silver ring that you see immediately, you recognize immediately. I think it's a gift that you gave your sister when she turned like 16. It's like a ring with what would it look like? Like you gave her this ring as a gift. Part of her like, well, you're an adult now. But is it like plain? Does it have markings on it?
It has it's very simple, but it's very nice and very expensive, and it has one blue stone, which is obviously a little lapis lazuli.
Yeah.
To be like, I know you're growing up in this odd place that you don't recognize super well, but here is to remind you of home, sort of deal.
Yeah, never forget the azure waves that carry our commerce to the world. Yeah, I dig it. Okay, so there's that, and then tied around it, what color is your sister's hair? Is she blonde?
I think she's blonde.
Yeah, I can't remember if it's... So there's a lock of blonde hair that's like tied around it, and it's been roughly cut. You can see the edges of it are just like cut with a knife, and it just clunk like lands on the table.
And yeah, I take the letter opener that I've opened with and like slam it blade first into the table in anger.
Okay.
Where is send word to Ekaterina that we've received the letter? Would you, someone?
And the guard, I think the guard doesn't respond because they're here to protect you, not to do your like. He's not a servant, so I think he assumes you're talking to yourself or just politely like ignores you because it's not his job. But you do have a bell you can ring to like bring in a servant because you have some in your house.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm going to read it first because I need to know what to tell her.
Okay, all right. The letter is very straightforward. It says, it doesn't even say like the ring is there to say what the letter doesn't need to, right? We have your sister, and et cetera, et cetera. And all it says is a sum of money, which because we abstract the stuff, I'm not going to be like, whatever. But it's an amount of gold crowns, and it's a lot. An amount of gold crowns, and it tells you like prepare this amount. More information will be forthcoming. So like, just get ready to pay us. This is how much we want. So it's pretty much just like 2 or 3 sentences total. No threats. No like, we'll cut her face off if you don't do it. Like, it's very understated for a ransom letter.
All right. You mentioned that the letters were odd.
Yeah.
Can I use read to try and work out what's strange about them?
Yes. Look at that. Use of the read skill above and beyond being allowed to read.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's call it. Let's see. Note or sign as your article. Like, it's not complex. You're not trying to read like something you don't understand. Let's just call it an ob. To recognize what's odd about it, let's call it ob 3 for this one.
Okay. All right. Well, I've only got a 2. I'll fork in write because I'm determining writing by reading.
Yeah.
Anything else I can use? Not really, because I don't know who wrote it. No wises are applicable. Okay.
Ooh, good. Nice work. That's a good roll. 2 6s and a 5 too.
Sure was.
Okay, so as a modern analogy or whatever, you know how sometimes for me it's Japanese. If I see English characters written by a person who is used to writing in Japanese, they all kind of look the same. Like, you can tell a person, because I'm familiar with Japanese, I can tell a person who is used to writing in Japanese writing in English.
Yes.
All their English looks kind of the same. It's that. This person is used to writing characters that are not in the trade language, and I think you got the obs, so you can figure out that they're used to writing not in Carpathian, but in the lettering, this older lettering system that Carpathia used to use, but then the church converted them essentially to like Latin characters. It's this world's equivalent of Cyrillic. It's used in the Forest. They still write with that language. And then some of the other kind of like lesser kingdoms in this area. And then also old Carpathia used to write in the sort of Cyrillic equivalent, but now no longer does.
Yeah, and then I like ring for servant.
Okay. Yep.
Send a message to Ekaterina. Or get ready to send a message to Ekaterina, and I'll write it myself.
Okay. So as you're talking, you're pulling out a piece of paper and.
Yep. Yeah, and I just write correspondence received, amount disclosed, foreign writer.
Mm-hmm. And you give it to the servant. The servant goes. Your bodyguard. Yeah, still just stone face. Doesn't say anything. Doesn't send anybody with the servant because they're here to protect you, not your servants. And then your servant heads off to Katerina. So just as a matter of mechanisms, if you wanted to generate the amount of cash that they want,
Mm-hmm.
It is, you would need, let me see. God, it'd be like an ob 12, ob 13, like, I guess because it's double the dice and they would want like 7 dice of cash. So it'd be an ob 14 resource test. It's a lot. This is like $1 million. This is like you could buy a warship or a castle.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's see if I can do it. Let's look at the books and see if it's at all possible.
Okay. So you take out your ledger and start to see if you can generate yourself 7 dice of cash.
hang on 1 second while I just make $1 million.
Yeah. Liquidate $1 million, right? This is like selling things, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense for this to tax you.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a couple of rolls in a row, if that's all right. So I'd like to generate a small amount of cash, try and create a 3D fund, then create the cash again, and then make the resource roll, if that's okay.
Yes. Yeah. So what you can do is that you can't do like I'm gonna generate 7 1-die cash like rolls.
No.
Because it is just one roll to turn your resources into cash. Because otherwise then you could just make anyone with even a passable amount of resources could become infinitely rich very easily.
Yeah. You can only use one at a time.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so
one.
you're going to generate, and yeah, you can't use cash dice on a cash generating roll because you can't. That's not how it works.
No. Okay, so I'll forgo the third roll, but I will generate cash to generate funds.
That's
and then
what.
use
Yes.
funds.
So you make gold. You can sink that gold into a fund, and then you can use the fund to pay for another bigger like withdrawal. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm going to try and generate 3 die of cash, which is 6.
Okay.
What we got? We got 2, 7, 2, 9, 3 mod.
What's great about watching Lodovic do all of this stuff is that in the background, the people of Carpathia are starving to death.
You have 2 6s.
I do have 2
You do have
6s.
2 6s.
Spend a fate.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, and the 3 die fund is this isn't a straightforward one. This is a number that goes up and up.
Yes.
Tried to do it before, failed.
So you've made some cash. You can create a fund. You describe the form of this durable wealth, and then test resources and obstacle. Double the amount of the fund's dice plus 1. So it'll be an Ob7 resource test.
Okay, that's doable. So what is this fund going to be?
Yeah.
This fund will be
Like you have all this money earmarked for your big like buy the arms like industry like savings accounts, and maybe you have to pull from there.
Yeah, so what this probably is just like poetically, this is probably a bunch of agriculture based stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we can do plowshares into swords, and yeah, it's just taking advantage of the fact that everybody's like super poor at the moment and grains at a premium, and I'm importing.
Right. So you're selling some stored like grain that you have at a really inflated price because you can. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. 5, 6.
I think what you mean by that, Adam, is that makes sense, dick.
I mean, of course I mean that, yes. All right, so you have a 3 die agricultural dividends fund.
All right.
So wait, now do you have 2 3 die funds or?
I have 2 dice funds and a 3 dice fund.
Yeah, and like the thing is, the reason why we narrate this stuff is because it does have an impact on the game's like world, right? The fact like Lodovic moving all this big amount of money around in a starvation economy is actually impacting. Like that roll that Lodovic just made does benefit him, but also just made a bunch of people like have to pay all they had for food, right? It's causing strain on the economy. What's also going to be great about this is if you succeed, we're going to have like a 7 die box of like gold bars basically just sitting around in the setting now. Like it will exist, a huge pile of gold.
There's just so in an already starving and like becoming more and more destitute country, a huge portion of the wealth of the entire country is now a thing. that exists somewhere.
Yeah. Well, and also it's tricky because the king's treasury is inaccessible in that it was in the fucking castle.
Yep.
Yeah.
Should I close out of that roll or did I not make it? Oh no, I didn't make it. Okay, 3 on that, 1 on that. What was the ob? 14.
Ob 14. Yeah. So you've got your resources of 7. You've got a 3-die fund. The fund will take the hit if you fail.
Pardon?
The fund takes the hit if you fail, right?
Yes.
And you can only use one.
So 4 mod. I will spend a persona point on this.
Okay.
14. All right, cool. It's not a bad roll. That is 4 6s.
Yeah, you got 4 6s. You want to fate that?
I will fate that first.
Oh boy.
Oh. Okay, so
Okay, that's 10 successes.
you're 10 over 14 now.
Okay.
Now you have a call on for resources, right?
I do have a cooldown for resources, so it's going to be a persona to reroll every failed dice.
Oh, you don't have to spend the persona. You can use your call on once per session.
Just
Okay.
yeah, it's a 1 per session thing.
Yeah. Now you don't reroll the failed fate dice, just the dice that failed on the resources test.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
the initial-
that is
So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1.
It's 3 dice
Yeah,
because
3.
Dave rolled so well on his initial roll.
does the fate then work on those, or does it not do that?
The order in which they are applied, I think you're supposed to use the call on first, then the fate.
Should I have done that?
But
Well,
But
so
it
if you
doesn't-
get any 6s from rolling the call on trait, those would have counted in
those would explode.
exploding your 6s.
So here's what you do. You're gonna roll 3 dice. You're gonna use your call on. You're gonna roll your dice. And then if any of them come up 6s, just reroll them.
You're gonna reroll.
Okay.
Yeah, you just don't reroll all these extra other dice. But
13 out of 14. No, I failed.
Shit. Okay. So the fund takes a hit, and you just can't generate the agricultural fund. I love this. So you sell a bunch of your agriculture, and you take a loss.
Yep.
Even at a considerable thing, there's just not enough gold in the kingdom to put you in a position to have a big box of it that you can just give someone. And so you realize, the fund takes a hit by 1. It's only 1 tax, so the fund is still standing. It's not destroyed, but
sorry,
It's taxed based
hand.
on the difficulty of the test. So
which is like
I think it's 3.
Your
I think
margin
the
of
whole
failure-
thing-
your margin of failure was 2 because you got 12 out of 14.
Did I get 12? Oh, yep. No, not all 3 of those are successes.
yeah. So it is 2.
12 on the 14, and the tax is based for resources on
Margin of failure. So you take a hit of 2, and that 3-die fund becomes 1 die.
No, I'm not sure that's correct. I don't think it's based on how much you fail by. I think it's how difficult the test was.
I don't think so. Let me double check.
Yeah,
There's pretty clear rules for it. We just got to find them.
Yeah, it is.
Here we go. Oh yeah, no, you're right. It depends on if it was routine, difficult, or challenging. It was challenging, so it is margin of failure. So you're both right.
Okay,
Yeah,
fair enough.
I hate this, Adam. How could we both be right?
you're both correct. Yes.
And just before I do it, because I really want to, I don't mark the challenging test because you do not get XP on failed
That's
resource.
right. Had you succeeded in generating this gold, you would also have gotten better at generating gold. Rich get richer. However, looking at you, so you spend the rest of the day, right? This is like the sequence where we see Ludovic and the candles are like burning down. And he's like writing and turning pages, and the books pile up, and like people come in and you talk to them and they leave, and it's the whole day of just you working towards getting this gold. And in the end, you're sitting there in front of this pile of papers, and you're sweaty and exhausted, and like You can't do it. There's not enough raw material available to pay these extortionists.
Right. And I think he comes away from the situation not feeling like he's failed so much as the people probably knew this was like almost impossible. And in his mind, it has cemented the idea that this was to do with his plans. This wasn't like unrelated. They didn't kidnap his sister for a bunch of money. This was somebody who wanted to stop him doing the other thing that he was going to use
to ruin you. Yeah. Yeah, this is like economic assassination.
Could be. Yep. Yeah. Just to see if you could do it, and then yeah. And I mean, I think even like Lodovic, you can let's have you make a test, right? Because you have like markets wise or something like that you're opening, right?
Yeah. What is it called exactly? Yes, markets wise, I'm opening at the moment.
Okay, let's have you make that roll. Because
Sure.
I want to give you some insight. I want to see how insightful you can be about what's just happened today. And I know you're working on the thing, so I think it's fair to call.
You just follow the money.
Yeah, what's the ob, or do you just want to open end it?
Let's just do this one open ended.
Okay, well,
Nice.
I see all of those ones.
Yeah, all your dice are successes on that one.
Go.
Okay, so had you made the markets wise test before you did all this stuff, I could have told you the potential ramifications, but instead, all of your money, like moving shit around, all these decisions, this is essentially you taking a bunch of very like risky maneuvers in like, this would be like buying a bunch of like really unstable stock and then like selling a bunch of stuff. You've dramatically done some damage to the economy of Carpathia today. Food is a non-renewable resource right now. There's no one growing any more of it, and the food supplies in the kingdom have just dipped dramatically without the price changing at all. You can see, looking at the numbers, that like famine is imminent, and you have pushed it along a little. You didn't single-handedly cause it. That was your other character, but you've given it a push towards the brink. The doomsday clock has ticked up 5 minutes.
Dave, ruiner of settings.
Listen, this is the thing that happens when you play characters that have a lot of power. Sometimes failures do these things. Now, no one's gonna blame you for it, right? You're hidden behind all your shell companies and stuff. No one's gonna be like, Lodovic did this, but you can see it on the paper that like things are gonna get worse before they get better, and that Carpathia needs a food supply.
I mean, ostensibly, nobody's going to blame me for this unless his hunch is correct that someone did this on purpose and they would expect this to be the outcome of
Correct. Yes. This is the moment where you as a player can choose if you want to angle for like paranoid as your trait for the next trait vote. You can see the pieces laid out in front of you. And it's possible, someone is out to get you, and this isn't your fault at all. This is just you're being manipulated. Someone else made this happen.
Also, I feel like your idealism has to kick in here, where you're like, oh, I just like accelerated famine in my country, and I have beliefs about helping the common folk.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's some tension there in terms of.
Yeah, I'm thinking what he will do next.
Well, why don't we check in with Agatha, and you can ponder it a little bit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Lodovic, you're looking at your papers, and yes, you still are super rich, but like Carpathia is not so much. And while you have all these resources, liquidating them into gold it's just not currently possible. Meanwhile, Agatha, what are you up to, Agatha? I'll let you set the scene, because you're kind of left to your own devices because Robillard is out doing some stuff.
So, Adam, would you say that I have been left alone with Serica and Sister Sufferance?
We could certainly start there if you want. Yeah.
Because if I am, then my instinct is just that I would be teaching them something.
Yeah, let's start there. Let's do that.
A good fallback.
Yeah.
God, what am I going to teach them? I'm just going to take a quick look at my skills and try to think of what would be good.
Yeah, it was astrology last time.
I think teaching them astrology is a good start. It's like a pseudo magical skill that anyone can use
Mm-hmm.
as far as all that goes. Um, oh, he does. Okay, hold on. Strash has a copy of Burning Wheel Gulch. Hang on one second.
Hooray! Playing at other people's houses that have the rules.
So, activities that I can perform with
Yes.
astrology is what I'm going to check up on. Oh, he doesn't play much. Tell.
So, yeah, astrology is pretty much just you can either fork it, which is what most people do, or you can use your tool set to tell someone's fortune. Which you did last time, and
It went great.
the
It went
signs,
great.
yeah, the signs were ominous.
Everything was lovely and wonderful. So maybe we are outside naming stars and constellations. 'Cause I
Oh,
see that
okay.
as an easy thing on here.
Sure, easy for people who can see to do.
Well, yo, I can name them,
Yeah.
and I can tell them what to look for, and then they can try to find them, and that is how they learn.
Mm-hmm.
That's the lesson.
Okay, so just like let's set the scene. Where outside are you? Because they don't spend a lot. No one spends a lot of time outside because it's fucking freezing, especially outside at night.
At night, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So we get to see the weirdness of like how much they need to bundle up versus how much Agatha does
Yep.
or doesn't, I guess. And yeah, this kind of eerie nighttime scene in the like courtyard of the little like compound,
Mm-hmm.
or like I guess yeah, like the courtyard is a word for it. But yeah, I imagine there's like a little front area with a little wall and gate set up. That's outside of the buildings, but not outside of the kind of grounds or compound. And yeah, it's like very late at night when all of the lights are out in the city, because no one's going to be lighting lanterns or anything at night in the middle of winter.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, we're out there with like our breath smoking, or not smoking, but fogging up the little courtyard, and Agatha is describing constellations by way of like the stories behind them, and what they're meant to mean and their kind of relationship to each other, but she's not like able to point and be like, and there's that one, and there's that one. So yeah, she's just like explaining the significance of them and their histories, and letting the two young women like look in the sky and try to suss out what stars are what.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Trying to come up with a good constellation story off the cuff.
Right.
I think there's one that's like the story of like how the moon got made.
Yeah, we've never really talked about the celestial. How fantasy novel do we want to be about this? Are we going to be like, our world is different and cool? It has 5 moons. Like, you know, like,
No,
I feel like that's
there's a moon. There's
Yes.
one. And
well, we've already described our setting as in a lot of ways being very like Earth adjacent.
I mean, there is one moon, but there are also 17 orbiting asteroids.
Yeah, totally. 26 suns. They're all tiny. Yeah, no, it's fine.
so I think the story for the like people of the woods of how the moon came into being is that like Mother Wolf, the like wolf god, like got down with the sky while the sun wasn't around, and the moon is like their kid, their
It's a
progeny.
wolf egg.
Yeah, it's like a weird wolf egg, which is why wolves are obsessed with it.
Yeah.
So she's like telling this story about how like the sun like jealously guards the sky, which is why you can't see the sky's beauty during the day. And so at night when and the sky is masculine, the sky is feminine, and the sun is masculine, and there's a bunch of, like it's a vaguely politically inflammatory story as well, about like women doing witchy stuff while the men aren't around.
Yeah.
And so she's telling them this story and like gesturing vaguely at the sky and talking about the like mantle of the sky, like her great like cloak or whatever, and the various and like the stories of the gods that are told on it. And yeah, it's kind of like, the metaphor is that the sky is or the night sky and the stars in it are her like clothing.
Okay.
Of like Sky, who is a figure in her own right. Yeah.
So the wolf moon is like wrapped up in Mother's cloak, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. And so the two of them are like embracing all the time when they're out. That's the idea. And then based on like how the constellations interact with the course of the moon, there's like a mythology.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah. I always thought that was an interesting thing about astrology, or about astrology, the idea of like where the planets are in relation to like sometimes, like the red planet is in the eye of the giant, and those are bad times unless you're like waging war, and like the overlay of the great tapestry of the sky tells you when to do or not do things.
And it's because of perspective and things parallaxing,
Yeah.
basically. Some of those objects are very, very close, relatively speaking, and some of them are so far away that it may as well not matter.
Yeah.
And so that things move in these different ways, and how we mythologize the significance of those movements. Yeah, totally.
Cool. All right.
So there's this whole story about it.
Okay, so this is it's an OB1 astrology test, and let's make that a linked test for your test to instruct.
Yeah, exactly. So if I can make the test, if I can do a good job on the astrology test, then
it'll make teaching easier. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to fork anything. Because I don't know, I'm supposed to fork astrology into things, not the other way around.
Yeah. I mean, symbology. You have symbology, right?
Oh yeah, I do. I guess we can do that. And yeah, so I want routine tests to advance this. So yeah, I'll take my knowledge of symbology will compensate for my wounds.
Yeah.
Goddamn wounds.
That's right.
Are you fucking kidding me? All right, these kids are hard to teach.
So you're telling the story, and Sarika seems really distracted. She spends most of the time staring at, I guess, what would be this world's equivalent of like Saturn. So it's a planet. You wouldn't know this. They're all stars. There's no Galileo in this setting. These characters have no understanding of like how space works, even in the slightest. Yeah, we're way behind on that shit. It's only beginning to be understood. There's probably some like weird sailors that are starting to be like, wait a second, curvature of the Earth. Like let's figure some shit out. But for the most part, out here, especially in Carpathia. So she spends this whole time looking at what in almost every mythology, certainly the ones you're aware of, this is a bad star. This star it's like the dark star. It's known as like the eye of the adversary. It's like it's just bad. It's like this kind of like ominously glittering like purple thing in heaven.
I'll think of what
Stygians are probably pretty hype about it. To them, it's like the key of the gate of Osiris.
All the bad stuff is good for us.
No, it's just that the Stygians have a more holistic, flat approach to like things. Like everything's a little ominous, but there isn't like good gods and bad gods. Everybody's got their own shit going on.
Yeah, we're all eldritch and spooky.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Their whole jam is spooky eldritchness. So everything is weird. So she just seems like she's not really listening. She's kind of zoned out, just staring up at this like baleful star. And Sufferance...
I have a question.
Yeah.
A world building question.
Yeah.
Is there like a particular animal that is like emblematic of Stygia?
Stygia...
Or like types of animals, or
like Stygia. I mean, we talked about Stygia being like a
many places.
It's many places, but it's like North African, basically.
Yeah.
which is a very diverse band of stuff, but has Egypt in it, and that's what most people think of when they
Yes,
think
that
of.
exactly.
Yeah.
So out here, we assume, even though it's like, yeah, parts of a bunch of different countries and would be quite diverse in terms of these animals. Yeah, I mean, hippos, which horrible behemoths, right?
Yeah,
Like,
like they're big and scary. Snakes
there are absolutely
desert
monks.
creatures.
There are monks who went to
Scorpions.
monks who went to the Stygian kingdoms and came back and illustrated horrific, very badly drawn like
Oh
hippos
yeah,
and crocodiles
I
and
love those medieval illustrations of African animals where
yeah.
they're just like, I don't know, it's crazy. I had like snakes coming out of it. And shit.
Crocodiles. I got one of those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Look at that thing.
Yeah. Yeah. They're really well known. They're most well known for a creature that is a human but has a crocodile on its back. It's a terrible,
Yeah.
terrible monster.
And it's able to carry. It can travel across bodies of water and breathe through its crocodile.
So yeah, probably nothing that you would be familiar with because Agatha doesn't. I don't think you have a lot of scholarly like
So-
exposure to Stygia unless you want to try to make an untrained Stygia wise.
I'm just trying to think of like what little kernel of mythology that's rooted in like someone going to that place would be like. So I think we just understand it as being like a snake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
There's
the
definitely. I mean,
purple
even
star is a snake.
yeah, even like wolf's got to have enemies, right? And not just man.
No, yeah, exactly. So like poisonous animals that are like that win.
It might
by
not
a-
even be an animal. It might be like the berry of a poisonous plant, right?
Oh,
Like
actually, I like that more. Yeah, that it's the poison fruit.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah, tempting but deadly.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
she ends up spending most of her time staring at it. And Sufferance does that annoying thing where, when presented with the stories of a thing through another culture, instead she just keeps trying to either correct you or tell you like, "Well, I heard when I was a girl," right? Like,
it's called the Eye of the Adversary.
yeah.
And it represents the
Well,
devil.
So you talk about the
a
moon.
fury.
You talk
not
about the
just a
moon, and she says that it's not. It's she's like, that's silly. It's not that. It's this other thing. And her stories seem to you to be like a weird mashup of like villager tales, but also like biblical like
There's sort of like
stories.
a mythological pigeon.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just like
Stuff
all these
stuff she remembers from her kid that her grandma taught her, and then like I don't actually think the Bible has much to say about the moon. Like it's just
Well, yeah, exactly. It's like a gap, and so the folklore stuff
yeah.
fills in, but then gets colored with
Yeah.
like different figures. Like, oh, Saint so and so put the moon in the sky,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. Yeah, so we're
So let's see if you can cut through all of that and get to get to them with this teaching.
cut through the bullshit
That's right.
with a penalty.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
So
minus one
I'm at-
now.
-1 die or +1 ob.
If you it's +1 ob. I can't take dice away from you except for wounds, so the ob goes up by 1.
Yeah, and I can't fork anything, so I'm learning. But my base ob is 2, which means my base ob is, my base ob is +1, and it was 2, which makes it 3
Yes.
because it was Serica's will of 2.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get through to these kids, these troubled inner city youths.
Yeah, the
Yeah, do you
obs
want to
the
look
obs
at
were 2 or 4 cuz Sufferance is harder to teach cuz she's more willful.
Yeah, I'm gonna spend fate.
Do you want to grit your teeth first? Get rid of that wound.
It's too late now.
It's too late, and also just no. I just want to not have the wound anymore. I'm over it. And this is will. Okay.
Still 4 successes on 5 dice is pretty good, and
It's
you've
pretty
got
good.
fate
I'm
to
about
spend.
to roll 2d6.
Yeah. Hey, there you go.
I get it.
Okay, so do you
Just
have
barely.
right? And this is normally a lower ob because
Yeah, normally would have been op 4,
Yeah,
but it gets bumped up to 6 because these kids are so fucking.
okay. So they hear you, but they don't like. I mean, this stuff still happens, but you know the lesson sinks in. So later, if you refer to it, they'll remember.
Yeah, like Serica can't help but be fixated on the dark star, but is seeing the broader context that it's set into, at least. But I feel like, yeah, whereas Agatha puts forward the moon as being the thing to like focus on, Serica's view is different because she's fixated on the dark side of things.
Yeah.
It's
totally.
a symbolism.
It is symbolism, exactly. Well, and that's the thing is the choir follows the Church of God in that the moon will only matter if there was like an angel of the moon, right? In which case, that is the palace of the angel of the moon, and that's what we pay attention to. But yeah, okay. So you give them this little lesson out in the freezing cold, and I think at some point, Sufferance, like shivering even under her cloak, looks at you, and she says, "Are you not freezing? Can we please go back inside?"
Um, and yeah, Agatha just shakes her head. No, why?
She says, "Why?
Enough to no.
I I'm like to die out here, and I'd rather not die in the snow, thank you." She's like shivers on top of her shivering, like the idea of being one of those corpses, that everyone has now seen, right? Dead people
Yes.
outside, they're all over.
Very common. And she, yeah, Agatha like tisks her and just says, like, give me your hand, and like reaches, with her hand.
And she's terrified to expose her hand to the air, right? Like she like takes her hand out slowly and like, ugh. And you can see it hurts. Like she puts her hand out.
Yeah, she like winces a bit. Yeah. And Agatha's hand is like quite warm.
Mm,
Like despite her like not wearing full gloves, she's got like a half glove on or something.
yeah.
And so yeah, her fingers are warm. And she touches Serica's hand, and says, "In time, you will find that your body will do as you want it to. You will not be a victim of weather and cold. You will decide if you are warm or cold. But yes, let's go inside." And like she like ushers the two of them in, and we'll like have some tea or whatever to warm up.
Okay.
But yeah, Agatha wants to be like, yo, you don't have to keep being a weak little worm thing.
Yeah,
You
right.
could be cool and strong like me.
I think that's the thing is you're talking to Sufferance, who's just like, this seems like weird witch talk, but Serica, you can see is for the first time like listening when you're talking about like you can control your body, right?
Yeah, and I'm like it's said for both of their benefit, and I imagine for Serica those kinds of narratives are scary but tempting also.
Yeah.
The idea of like reasserting control over herself.
Okay.
And so
you
yeah,
you head back inside.
me trying to be nice and make friends with these petulant kids.
You're working on it slowly. It's happening.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see. Why don't we take a quick break here, and then when we come back, I want to see. I feel like Alessandra and the King are due a conversation. So
Yeah, I
let's.
can know what horrible magic to unleash at him.
Yeah, that's because I think there's actually a lot hinging on a conversation between Alessandra and the King. So we'll start with that when we come back. So don't go anywhere. I'm sure it's gonna be spicy as heck. We'll be right back with more Roll20 Presents The Burning Wheel.